What up, fam? I am Dr. Day Luna, and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the tummkins. The tummkins is also known as the tummy, and by tummy, I mean the gut. Today, we're diving into leaky gut, which may be a term that you've heard before, but I want you to understand what it actually means, and not just what it means, but how to fix it. Hey friends, so today we're talking leaky gut. Leaky gut is this overarching word that is used to describe when the gut is absorbing things that it should not be. So your entire digestive system, I don't know if you're aware of this, but your entire digestive system is kind of a single layer of cells, meaning that is a very highly absorbable surface, which is quite important, right? Because usually what we put in our mouth, we are intending to eat. We're intending to eat it so that substance can be absorbed into our body. You know, because you listen to this podcast and you're subscribed. By the way, if you're not subscribed, just hit that button below. But you know this, that whatever you put in your mouth is getting integrated into your body, and that's happening at the digestive lining. There are so many different transporters and cells that are there to not only help you absorb your vitamins and minerals, but you have a whole host of immune cells in there to make sure that things that are crossing cannot impact you in a negative way. And leaky gut can occur when that single layer of cells breaks down. The lining of your gut, it's almost as if those cells are holding hands with one another, and the hands that are being held are these protein molecules. Zonulin is a very common one that you might have even been tested for on a stool test. And if those two cells let go of their hands, things can get through. Things can get through that should not get through. That is the basic overview of leaky gut, but we're gonna get much more nerdy here. So first, you're like, why are you even talking about leaky gut? I don't have leaky gut. I don't see anything leaking. Let me tell you some symptoms that may, fire off your brain to think, I need to look in the gut. First, bloating. Honeys, you should not bloat after every meal. You should not. If you are getting bloated after every meal, I have so much content of this podcast to discuss that. There's a whole episode on reasons why you might be bloated. Listen back to that. But a big one could be that your gut has inflammation in it. And that bloating when you eat could be a sign that the food that you are trying to digest are not being broken down and absorbed into their small little microscopic contents, but they are being absorbed in a way that is causing your immune system in your gut to freak out. That's what inflammation is. It's when your immune system is active. And of course, we want the immune system to be active against things that we don't want in our body, toxins, infections, things like that. But we don't want our immune system reacting against food. And that can absolutely happen when the lining of the gut gets broken down. Beneath the lining of that single layer of cells is your immune system, which is why I'm speaking to inflammation. Another sign that you might have leaky gut could be that you just don't tolerate certain foods well anymore. You used to tolerate this, now you don't. Every time you eat this, you get a headache. Every time you eat that, you break out in a rash. So headaches and rashes, that's not just in the gut, right? But of course you can have symptoms like diarrhea, constipation, changes in bowel movements, abdominal pain, gas. I find that a lot of individuals that have been diagnosed with IBS, which truly isn't really a diagnosis, it's just saying that your gut is irritable and that there's no true pathological cause. That's not a real diagnosis to me, by the way. That is just a sign that your body is screaming at you to look at your gut, but it doesn't mean that you have IBS. It probably means that you have leaky gut, which means that you could be eating something that's breaking down that gut lining. Stress breaks down that gut lining. Toxins break down that gut lining. Hitting your head breaks down that gut lining. So let's unravel some of those a little bit more. You know this, fam, that I am a really big fan of you being with your food when you're eating it, right? If you are in a stressed state when you're trying to eat, your whole digestive system is off. And you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that, doctor? If you look at your food, and if you're not salivating at all when you're looking at your food, that tells me that your digestive enzymes are not being produced. From your mouth, salivary amylase. From your stomach, hydrochloric acid. From your liver and gallbladder, bile. From your pancreas, all those other digestive enzymes. It really starts in your head. It starts in your mouth. So if you're not present with your food when you're trying to eat, and then you're not even chewing and you're swallowing this food, what happens is that your digestive system has to do the work that your mouth didn't do to try to break down those large food molecules into absorbable pieces. And when they hit your lower digestive system, and if they are not broken down into absorbable pieces, it's not going to digest or absorb, and it could cause significant inflammation at the lining of the gut, which can break down that gut barrier. So it could truly be that you're just not digesting your food that well, and that is contributing to this. But of course, it could absolutely be the toxins in food. I've actually had this discussion a lot with my patients this week, that they say that they only eat organic based on the dirty dozen. And I wish that the food supply in this country was safe. I live in the United States of America, if you cannot tell. And I wish that the food in this country was not poison, but it is. So if you're eating conventional food, even if it's, if you're being mindful about the dirty dozen, that's definitely a great first step. I do want to applaud you for that. But I will say, which is sad to say, that it has to go further than that, because these toxins are inflammatory and they can break down the lining of your gut. Stress, like I said, because you're not breaking down your food, it's not only decreasing the parasympathetic output in terms of your digestive enzymes, but it's actually giving blood flow to the gut. And if your gut doesn't have sufficient blood flow, everything that it needs to heal is in that blood. The gut lining can start to break down. Different medications can do this and have really big impacts on the gut. Antibiotics can do this just because your immune system in a large part is due to probiotic organisms that are in there. Chronic infections in your gut, parasites, SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I can't even tell you how many people I do stool tests on, and I find things like Giardia, Salmonella, E. coli. If you've ever had food poisoning and then exploded and then never treated yourself in terms of herbs or supplements or medications, whatever it is, if that went fully untreated, that critter could still be living in your gut. All of these things can be breaking down that lining in your digestive system. Your small intestine, the lining of it kind of looks like fingers. They're called phalanges. And these fingers on that entire surface is one layer of cells. And this is a digestive surface. So the more surface area that you have, the more that you're going to be able to absorb across that surface. And if your gut lining is inflamed, what happens is that can break down. So not only are you not getting everything that you need from your food, so you can see signs of nutrient deficiencies. You could see signs of hair loss. You could see signs of mental health disturbances, but then also your poop's gonna look weird. So that's something that I want you to look out for. If you're like, my poop one day is solid, my poop one day is loose, it's probably that you have leaky gut. And again, that is just when those lining of cells, I almost like to think of it as Red Rover. Do you remember that game? We used to play that when I was young. You would hold hands, someone would run through and try to break through those little hands that you were holding. That's what leaky gut is. Once it opens up, remember what would happen in that game? Everyone would run through. That's essentially what's happening in your gut. Your gut is highly selective. This is the outside world, from your mouth to your anus. That is literally the outside world. You're taking things from the outside world, and your gut is saying, do we want to integrate this or do we want to shit it out? And a healthy gut lining knows the difference. It knows, okay, this is safe. We are integrating this. We are using this for healing. But it also knows, nope, we don't want that. We don't want that toxin. We're going to poop it out. When that lining breaks down, that discernment gets confused. So now big food molecules go into circulation. Toxins go into circulation. Infections can go into circulation. So if something's living in your gut and if that barrier opens up, it can swim. And by swim, your blood is right there. You have so many vessels, so many blood vessels in your digestive system just waiting to absorb whatever it is that is there. You have in your gut something called GALT, gastrointestinal associated lymphatic tissue. This is your immune system. It's wrapped up your immune system with blood vessels and nerves. So this is the enteric nervous system, if you've heard that word before. It's the way that your gut talks to you. It's the way that the gut and the nervous system are connected, this brain-gut connection. And your GALT is there to keep you healthy. It is your immune system. It's that army that is saying, this should be here, this should not. And that GALT can become very active in leaky gut, which means that your immune system doesn't just stay in your gut, it goes everywhere. So this might mean that you eat a certain food and now you get joint pain. That happens to me with peanuts. Isn't that so sad? You could eat a certain food and get migraines. You could eat a certain food and get hives or break out or get a rash or just have X, Y, or Z symptom that is systemic. And that is because that lining has broken down, things are getting through. And your immune system's really smart, but when we break down our barriers, your gut lining is a first barrier, then the other arm of your immune system has to work a little bit harder. And inflammation feels different in everyone, but oftentimes I do see it show up as joint pain, migraines is huge, rashes is huge, and I also see a lot of mental health stuff show up. So if you have brain fog, babes, you know, brain fog is where you can't remember words. You just feel like there's a cloud in your brain. Things aren't firing as they should. You don't feel like yourself. You feel like you're kind of in a dream. First of all, you know this, you might be living in mold, right? We talk a lot about that on this podcast, but if that's not it, it's probably coming from your gut. I don't know if you've ever felt that if you eat something and then feel a little loopy or out of it after. It's probably from that mechanism that I was speaking to, that you ate something, your gut is inflamed, and now it's going systemic into the body. So if you have brain fog, not just that, but depression. Depression is huge with leaky gut. And if you go back to my root causes of depression episode, we talk about this a little bit because this has been extensively studied in individuals that have had traumatic brain injuries, that your blood-brain barrier and your gut barrier, they're very much connected. So if you slam your head, what happens is that barrier will open up in your brain and your gut gets leaky. And that's because your body is very smart and it wants, in that leakiness of your brain, to get more immune cells in there to start cleaning up that mess. But unfortunately, it also takes a big hit on the gut. And what can show up absolutely is depression. There's many studies that show that inflammation in the brain, if you were to inject someone with an inflammatory cytokine, they would have symptoms of depression. And that is because inflammation in the brain makes things slow down. It makes you feel unmotivated. It makes you not feel like yourself, which in a lot of the ways is like depression. Right? Have you ever noticed the first day that you get sick, or when you feel like you're coming down with something, you're just like, nothing feels good. And you're just, that's your energy. That is truly the inflammation from that infection swimming around your body. Some of it's going to your brain, and that is why you're feeling that way. So I could go on and on talking about the causes, but the big ones, as we discussed, any toxin, whether that's the toxins in your food or toxins that you're choosing to ingest. It could be an infection, a chronic infection, an acute infection. It could be stress. It could be that you hit your head. It could be pharmaceuticals. It could be so many different things. But now, homies, I can't leave you with nothing. I can't leave you with nothing to do. First thing to heal your leaky gut is you have to get your body in the parasympathetic nervous system, or else nothing's gonna work gut-wise. You can't get blood there to heal it. So vagal nerve exercises, you know I love these. Game changers for the gut. Humming, singing, gargling, chanting, stimulating the gag reflex, coffee enemas, submerging your face in cold, submerging your body in cold. All of these are vagal nerve exercises. They're gonna get that arm of the immune system up, and they're gonna start to heal off your gut. Another thing that you can do, I said heal off, seal off, heal off, you know, same shit. Something else that you can do to heal leaky gut are probiotics. Immune cells in large are activated by the microbes within you. They have this relationship where they talk to one another. So if you are someone that has been on a lot of antibiotics, or if you are someone that eats only the same foods over and over again, know that your gut is probably imbalanced from that microscopic standpoint. So using probiotics, and ideally, fam, they have to be shelf stable, because if they are not shelf stable, it means that they could easily be inactivated by the immense amount of acid in your gut. The acid in your gut is meant to kill things. So I'm a big fan of probiotics that I think are gonna work, that they're gonna withstand the digestive system, because if not, then you're just gonna take a pill and poop it out, right? Like, we want it to work. Probiotics, huge. I also really like herbs for this. Herbs are phenomenal for sealing off the lining of the gut. A couple that are my favorites are things that get really gooey when you make them. So things like marshmallow root. That's actually how they used to make marshmallows before they put who fucking knows what into marshmallows. Marshmallow root is this really gelatinous goo when you make a cold infusion of it. Anything gooey is gonna kind of coat the lining of the gut, soothe it, and let it heal. That's a big one. You could also make it with different types of herbs that would fall under the gooey category. Things like althea. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's gonna be great. Chamomile. Amazing for the gut and also the nervous system, and both of those play hand in hand. L-glutamine. This is an amino acid that is fuel for your intestinal lining. So your body needs fuel to heal, right? So that goes really far with the gut. If you were to just do one thing, L-glutamine is really present in a lot of those gut healing powders and things. I am a fan. I am a fan of that. Outside of the supplements that you're taking, they're not going to fix it if you're eating poison. They're just not going to. They're not going to fix it if you're eating a food that you know your body hates. If you are lactose intolerant and if you eat lactose every day, you're breaking down the lining of your gut because there's inflammation. And I get this question all the time. Can you test me for lactose intolerance, doctor? And I'm like, sure. What happens when you drink a glass of milk? I kid you not. I have some patients that are like, I drink a glass of milk and then I have diarrhea. Can you test me for lactose intolerance? And I'm like, honey, you got lactose intolerance. There's nothing else that should do that. There's something that you should eat and then immediately have to shit, okay? Immediate, like where you're running to the bathroom. It's not a healthy bowel movement. That's different, right? If you're having a flushing reaction, every time you eat that, you're breaking down the lining of your gut. So please listen to your body in terms of the foods that it hates because you're causing yourself inflammation. I don't know why you're making yourself suffer, my sweet friends, but to each their own. So food you hate, cross off the list. Any foods that are highly processed, they're inflammatory by nature. I would say almost anything that you could pull off of the shelf in a conventional grocery store is trash and it's going to destroy your gut. I know. I'm opinionated, but it's because they're all filled with seed oils and those are so incredibly toxic to our bodies. They are also usually full with a lot of preservatives and, just modified starches and weird shit, an incredible amount of sugar. All of that is really inflammatory. So anything that is highly processed, but also if you just eat a lot of sugar, because what that does to the internal microbiome, it throws things off. That can lead to leaky gut as well. Other things that you would want to stay away from, and this is more so if you have an autoimmune disease. Some people, their gut can trigger their immune system in a way that now their immune system attacks itself. And that is what autoimmunity is, when your immune system gets overwhelmed. We have a whole episode on this too, if you want to dive deeper. But if you have an autoimmune disease, it is likely that your immune system is reacting to something that you're eating in a way that it is now confused and targeting itself. So for someone that has celiac disease or Hashimoto's, gluten is that thing for you. It is. However, some people, that's not their trigger, and I would recommend doing a food allergy test to see if you're eating a food that is consistently breaking down your gut lining. I would say that outside of the pretty sick gastrointestinal patients and also autoimmune patients, I don't find that if you're eating healthy that it's typically the food that is doing it, but it's just something to look into if you're someone who's been diagnosed with autoimmune anything. Other things that you could do to work on your gut is just to be mindful about all the other things that you're putting in your mouth, because all of them, you're asking your gut, should I absorb this or not? So this comes down to what, my friends? Water. We talk a lot about water on this podcast, and it's because it's fucking disgusting what is in our conventional water. What comes out of your tap it should be illegal. But it's not. Welcome to the United States of America, where we pretend that nothing is wrong, but we are all sick. And so much of this is starting in your gut. There's a reason why we say all health starts in the gut, and it's because of this inflammatory piece, the vitamins and minerals piece. And I will say also that if your gut is incredibly inflamed, you're not going to be absorbing any of your vitamins and minerals. So taking supplements would probably be helpful, and you might even want to fully bypass the gut by getting injections or an IV or something like that. So if you are someone that has brain fog, if you are someone that when you look at your nails, they have longitudinal lines in them, if you are someone that is depressed, is breaking out for no reason, has rashes out of nowhere, someone that is running to the bathroom, who you can't decide if you have constipation or diarrhea because you get both, if you are someone that bloats up like a balloon after you eat, if you are someone whose gut just in general doesn't feel right, you probably have leaky gut. You can test for these things. It would be a stool test. In your stool, it would probably show up like something similar to fecal zonulin. Zonulin is that protein, the red rover protein that your cells are holding one another. And know that you don't have to do that test to find out. Most of the things that I just chatted about on this podcast are across the board good for you, health-wise, because again, health does start in your gut. So if you are someone that is working on just comprehensive healing, and if you are someone whose gut is talking to you, that is the perfect place to start, because it's going to overflow into your hormones, into your blood sugar, into your sleep, into your mood. There is nothing that inflammation does not touch. So if you eat something and if you don't feel well after, or if you eat something and a part of your body feels off, I want you to recognize that it could be that food. And another really good practice is that you could just create a diet diary. You could do this in your phone. You could do this on a piece of paper if you still use paper to write things down. You could write down what you ate, what was going on in your life that day. Were you stressed? Were you running around? Were you happy? What energetically were you doing when you ate that food? How did you feel after? And how did you feel that evening? Because sometimes you can have that immediate reaction. But for me, as I was speaking to peanuts, if I eat peanuts, my ankle will hurt the next day, not usually that day. So my honey bunnies, I love talking about poop. I love talking about the gut. I love talking in general, so I appreciate all of you being here. If you want to dive into what exactly is going on in your gut, if you're curious if you have a digestive enzyme issue, or if you have a microbial overgrowth or imbalance, or a snake inside of your gut, aka a parasite, I love the Gut Zoomer from Vibrant Wellness. It is by far my favorite test, by far. And they don't pay me to say that, but it really is my favorite test because of the information that it gives you. It also tests for that fecal zonulin piece. That is something that you could get directly from my website. You can also work with your practitioner and request it, but that will give you an incredible amount of insight into your gut. And for now, just eat like the king or queen that you are because you deserve it. Stop eating processed food because there's really no reason to eat it at this point. It's really bad for you. Drink clean water, drop into the parasympathetic state, and chew your food. Your whole life is going to change. I promise you. If you want to work with someone one-on-one on bloating, let me know because it's honestly one of my favorite things to do. I used to be a little bloated bean. It was really upsetting for me, but no more. Healing can happen. All right, honeys, thanks for being here. I love each and every one of you. I hope that you have a beautiful poop later. Bye.